Children in Gaza are hungry, and the fear is that they're about to get hungrier. Donors to UNRWA, the main UN agency that supports Palestinians, including the UK, withdrew their funding 10 days ago because of allegations in a confidential Israeli document that this programme has now seen. The document repeats an allegation the Israel Defense Force has made many times, that the Hamas terrorist organization has been methodically and deliberately emplacing its terrorist infrastructure in a wide range of UN facilities and assets, but provides no evidence to support its explosive new claim that UNRWA staff were involved in the terror attacks on Israel, just stating, "From intelligence information, documents and identity cards seized during the course of the fighting, it is now possible to flag around 190 Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist operatives who serve as UNRWA employees. More than 10 UNRWA staffers took part in the events of the 7th of October. Israel gave the document to donors just after the International Court of Justice in The Hague made an interim ruling on a charge of genocide against Israel.
Israel must take immediate and effective measures to enable the provision of urgently needed basic services and humanitarian assistance.
It is utterly shocking that the donors who accuse UNRWA of instrumentalizing aid, as they have done, are themselves weaponizing UNRWA. It is a violation of international humanitarian law. It's a violation of international principles. It's a violation of the ruling by the ICJ, which says nobody should squeeze international humanitarian aid. What's Britain and others done? They've squeezed the aid. And it's a violation, arguably, of the Genocide Convention, because it will devastate the lives of 1.2 million people who were on UNRWA's food lines even before the 7th of October, and that's going to get longer. It will undoubtedly, if unsuspended, lead to mass starvation.
Apart from emergency aid, UNRWA runs schools, hospitals and other services for 5.9 million Palestinian refugees across the Middle East. It employs 13,000 Gazans, all of whose names have been checked against a UN terrorism list and as recently as last May were vetted and approved by Israel. UNRWA immediately fired the staff members named in the document and mounted an investigation.
UNRWA is playing a critical role. It's true that the Israeli government has been very critical of UNRWA, not now, from many times ago, but we cannot punish 2 million people by depriving them from the support that UNRWA is providing. Who will take care of that?
No. The Israeli Prime Minister, who met a UN delegation last week, is angry that UN reports about the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza were cited as evidence in the genocide hearing, adding to his anger that UNRWA staff allegedly took part in acts of terror.
I think it's time that the international community and the UN itself understand that UNRWA's mission has to end.
Today, UNRWA released photographs they say show a food aid truck in Gaza which was hit by Israeli naval gunfire. The Israelis haven't yet commented. In Gaza, the suffering never seems to end. Today, the UN Secretary-General announced an investigation into UNRWA to be headed by a former French foreign minister. If UNRWA were forced to close, another organisation would have to step in. Under international law, in the West Bank and Gaza, the occupying power, which is Israel, would be held responsible.
Well, earlier I spoke from our studio to UNRWA's spokesperson, Juliet Toomer, and I began by asking if they had received any evidence from Israel to support the allegations being made.
There is an ongoing investigation that is not conducted by UNRWA. It is being done by the highest investigative office of investigations in the United Nations. That investigation is ongoing, and they are going to do their work and look into all these allegations.
When was the last time UNRWA had given a list of employees or contractors to Israel?
Every year, we send a list of all our staff working with us across the region to the host governments. And we have not received a response to the content of that list from the government of Israel.
Were the 12 names that Israel has made allegations against on that list that was sent in May 2023?
I would assume they were.
It must have come as a surprise then.
It came as a shock.
Normally, as you know, if allegations are made against members of staff in any large organisation, sacking is not the first action. There's usually a suspension pending an investigation. Had UNRWA been given or had it acquired its own evidence that showed there was some sort of prima facie case?
The Commissioner General of UNRWA took that decision in the best interest of the agency.
Yeah, sorry, do you understand the question I'm asking you? I mean, I understand that there are allegations made. You then sacked those people, terminated their employment. Did you take that step, which is a big step normally after allegations are made, because of evidence that has perhaps not yet been placed in the public domain, or merely because of the seriousness of those allegations?
The latter, because of how serious these accusations are. And like I said, the Commissioner General of UNRWA did this in the best interest of the agency due to the huge risks, both to the reputation of the agency and also the largest humanitarian operation in response to the war in Gaza.
So did you realise in that time that the donors would turn off funding to UNRWA?
I would say we have informed our largest donors. I don't think any of us has anticipated this huge number of our friendly donors who have been our partners for decades on end to suspend the funding so quickly like they've done. I mean, in just over 24 hours, 9 of our donors suspended funding to UNRWA. I also think none of us have anticipated that this would be done in the middle of a war and to the largest humanitarian organization who's responding to what has become very quickly one of the most complex and most difficult humanitarian crises in the world right now for the UN.
Is there any comparable example you can think of funding being suspended before an investigation has been reported?
Nothing comes to mind. Perhaps others who spent longer in the United Nations, they might know the answer to this. But the worth of the suspension of funding is about half of the agency's operational budget. So we're talking about a huge amount of money.
Given the suspension of the funding from these key donors, how long can you continue to operate?
So we're likely to be forced to suspend our operations by end of February, beginning of March, if the funding does not resume.
What does that mean in practical terms, as you say, because it's so extensive, the activity of UNRWA? Does that mean, all, schooling, all agencies, all work will just stop?
We're going to be forced to make very tough decisions that humanitarian aid workers are not supposed to be forced to do.
Thank you very much.